Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on top stories. I am Oyi Okbala. Let's begin. Over the weekend, Mbeseha County, often hailed as the culture, heartbeat, and political nerve center of Ambazonia, held its highly anticipated county draft, a pivotal event that has once again demonstrated the commitment of these people, both at home and in the diaspora, to the ongoing pursuit of self-determination and national restoration. The draft transcended the boundaries of a typical fundraising initiative. It emerged as a powerful show of unity, resilience, and strategic mobilization in support of the Ambazonian government's liberation agenda. This symbolic city, where the flames of resistance against colonial domination first erupted in the mid-2010s, served as a fitting backdrop for a renewed call to action and national sacrifice. From community halls in Mbeseha villages to virtual platforms connecting Ambazonians across continents, the draft echoed the spirit of a people determined to reclaim their destiny. It is also underscored Mbeseha's enduring role not only as the birthplace of Ambazonians' modern resistance, but as the county most emblematic of the nation's vision for sovereignty, justice, and identity. Yet, as the people celebrate these milestones, the road ahead remains fraught with challenges. Mbeseha's diverse and cosmopolitan nature, while a source of cultural richness, has also exposed it to infiltration and internal rifts. With the government moving forward with critical restructuring efforts, the draft serves as both a rallying point and a cautionary reminder. National unity and strategic vigilance are all essential to safeguard the gains of their struggle. In tandem with these developments, Saturday's edition of Ambazonia Today also shined a light on the disinformation campaign propagated by the regime in La Republic du Cameroun, particularly highlighting the deceptive narratives of figures such as Issa Chiroma, as truth confronts propaganda. Mbeseha continues to lead by example, solidifying as Ambazonia's cultural bastion and political compass in these defining times. Well, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at the kidnapping surge in Bambui and Bambili universities as gangs exploit ransom. Residents urged to stay vigilant. Scenarios on certain revival, crude refining to partiality resumes in December 2027. The question is, isn't this an election propaganda? Also tonight, French Cameroun subjects Buea residents to 2-month blackout. French Cameroun administration inflicts chaos on Ambazonian teachers. Tonight, we'll also take a walk into Muyuka, where residents decry La Republic du Cameroun military extortion and brutality in Ambazonia. On the African Sea, Sudanese cabinet holds first meeting in Khartoum since army recapture. And on the foreign scene, BRICS steps back from unified currency plans, embraces local in national currencies. Now let's get the news info briefings. wave of kidnappings has hit the Bambui and Bambili university communities, with several university professors, staff, and sisters falling victim to unidentified gunmen. The incidents have escalated recently, prompting a strong call for vigilance amongst residents. On the 13th of August, according to reports, Professor Mbanga Lawrence of the University of Bamenda's Faculty of Art was kidnapped along with two other colleagues. The kidnapping took place just a few meters from Grace Pharmacy in Bambili. The assailants were in an ash-colored RAV4 and also seized a vehicle belonging to Reverend Sisters. Fortunately, Professor Mbanga was released after 2 days in captivity, and the other two individuals kidnapped with him were released a day later after 3 days in captivity. This incident is the latest in a series of abductions targeting the academic community. Just last week, another university staff and also a member of the university community was kidnapped in Mile 4 bypass. The individual was later released, but their car was held as a guarantee for the payment of an unspecified ransom, adding to the growing concern. Some Reverend Sisters were also reportedly kidnapped alongside two female staff members from the Higher Institute of Commerce and Management on the 27th of August. The victims from the Commerce were identified as the Dislamu Laura and Ing Maria Claire. Though their status remains unconfirmed, the kidnappings have sent shockwaves through the university communities, with staff and residents urging caution and vigilance. Staff at the HICM are among those urging caution, with one message reading, "We all are aware that some staff members of this institute were kidnapped yesterday around Bambui. A call for vigilance. Preferably drive back in a cluster, avoiding closing late." Residents and university staff are now being advised to take extra precautions, including traveling in groups and avoiding late night movements to ensure their safety. This, as we all know, is a direct consequence of the war declared on Ambazonian by President Buea of French Cameroun. No one is safe. Barrister Mbeseha, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for more at the beginning.
Kidnapping seems to be back again, but this time around, it seems to have focused more on the academic communities. Or could you say this might just be something not targeted? Because sometimes I'm wondering, sometimes it will look like it's being focused on a particular group. There was a time it was bar owners, bartenders, waiters, and all of that. Sometimes it will look like it's teachers. Sometimes it will look like it's a particular set. So it doesn't just look like coincidence to me, but I would like to hear what your thoughts are.
My thought is that is not coincidence. No, it's not coincidence. It's something that is foreseeable, right? Because taking it under normal circumstances, reasonable government, if they be able to predict, to foresee what is happening there, because you call it university area, university students, professors, those created by government on some paper. Some with some physical, call it a corner, cast Bambili. They just call the University of Bambili. I said here before, it's just a piece of paper created institution without any buildings. They live in there. But again, if you look at what you call Bambili community, they're university, there's just one university there, and some fake campus that exists around there. That bring in thousands of people. As I said before, if there are about, just imagine there are 50 students, they all come small cities. It also assumed that those schools have not less than 500 teachers to add to those secondary schools and other professional schools. These are people who are young. These are people who are in general rich. Because you live or you live in your own area to go to Bambili, you pay a house there. You have some money. So these are the people who get by criminals for ransom. Because if you're in your own Buea, they have captured your brother or whoever, you'll be struggling to pay. The message is not something you can afford money. You have to pay the ransom. So, and if you're supposed to have these sections, university of the court who live there, they are supposed to be general, they are good targets. So it should be planned. If you have a creation like this, and quality town, university environment where all these people will come in, the government would have created enough security there. Not just putting 5 men to be extorting money. They should be there with the appropriate tools, to phones, to be able to follow you if you are committed. Because this is highly elite there. So they are not the duty there. The type that you provide in Bambui or the type that you provide in Funkankan or in the village. These are intellectuals. The guys who are doing that thing there are properly organized. Where they should be in that place. Security, I doubt it. It's a negative. I think it is. That's why even those things that happen, the government will tell you they're investigating. There are no results ever come out. Why? In the university campus, you showed us pictures of investors there who are being for ransom. And they returned 2 weeks, 3 days, 4 days after, and then finally go back to your house. Tell the story of the kidnapping. You know, these are supposed to make highly profitable. And it is across read online newspapers where you can don't find good opinion written by these university professors or in any newspaper. Tell the story of the own kidnapping. Explain the reason why what their kidnappers told them. They will not do it, and the past were university professors. So how do they intend to end this thing? What if the story of what happened to you? Even if you're meeting your ignorant God, to why your doctors told you to extra 1 million from you, 500,000, or to give you 20 as a university professor, you don't tell the story, you die with it. And so it is not a coincidence. It's a deliberate thing. Why the government? They are not doing it because they don't want to do it, or they neglect to do it. Either way, it is responsibility of that sitting there in Yaoundé with his chef d'etat everywhere in Bamenda, including prefect, governors, and so on and so forth. How far is Bambui from Bamenda town? That the prefect is there. Why don't they kidnap the prefect? How many times have they kidnapped the governor or those high government officials there? And so, what story did they tell Yaoundé? They tell Yaoundé that in spite of all this kidnapping of professors or students, everything has returned to normal. That's a fake story. If this is being done in the background of the so-called Anglophone problem, what academic security advice? That the problem is over, but the kidnappings continue. That the problem is mercy, but the university professors are being adopted, they are lied. No, it is a fake system. And the problem, who are just, they are young. Most students in university around the university are between 18 and 25. They are young. But what are these old guys, professors? To get the rank of professor, you probably work for no less than 10, 15 years. If that's the real professor. And so these people are supposed to be matured intellectually. They're supposed to be matured physically. They're adults. They are family members. They own wives or husbands. And so it is a total failure of the system. Again, I've said it last week. What they call Bambui University is something on a piece of paper, created without structures. If there were structures, a good number of those students will live in student hostels. There will be security. Those places will be fenced. They will be fenced. And that's the first level of security. The idea that you will come into your room and kidnap you is impossible. But allowing them, creating a university on piece of paper without anything to protect them, even just the physical structures of protection is not there. What will prevent those children from going wild, from being raped, from doing all the injustice that I can find, which is part of the destruction of human society, where the students roam around having free sex. They expect to have children out of wedlock, having free anything you can find. They expect to produce children from the streets. What is the future of these children, of these girls or these boys giving birth at 18, at 19 as students? So the first line of security is with the government. They have failed. The second line of security is with the government. They have failed. They can blame it on Amba. Amba is a name. Amba cannot. If Amba has become that powerful, then the government must admit that they have also failed. They have defeated them. And so it's no coincidence. It's a deliberate thing. It is done either deliberately with the complicity of the administrators there, or inadvertently by their failure to do their job. Either way, it is responsibility of the government. Either way, it is telling the world that normalcy has returned. If there's no normalcy in Bambili that holds the younger generation of people, then you cannot talk about normalcy in Bamenda. You cannot talk of normalcy in the Northwest as a bloc. Let me call it their own way. And so again, our dear professors, you have to tell your story. If Cameroun Tribune cannot welcome you, if no newspaper can welcome you, learn to be a writer. Publish somewhere else. Tell your story, what your adopters told you. Inform the world. Your redemption might well come from somebody else. But just going back to your private room, taking your academic rules and hanging in your bedroom or under your carpet and sleeping is not a solution. Be up to the level of university professor. Don't answer professorship by name. Answer professorship by qualification, by merit. And education is expensive. Education is very, very important. It is on to you to educate the people. And so if you're not educating the people, you're not educating yourself. Maybe you still have to go somewhere and justify your professorship in whatever field you are doing it. That's what it is. That's my opinion. That's all I have to say about it. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Well, moving on, the Société Nationale de Raffinage, Cameroon's national oil refinery company, has announced plans to resume refining crude oil by December 2027. The question is this not another election propaganda? Why talk about the 2027 project 2 months to 2025 elections? Oh, well, after a shutdown of over 6 years, this anticipated revival is expected to be partial and fraught with uncertainties as usual. Well, according to a Kuma British firm involved in the project, only 75% of the installation can be salvaged, while 8% are permanently lost and 17% remain under evaluation. This means that even in the best case scenario, the refinery will not regain its full capacity of processing 42,000 barrels per day. The visibility of meeting the announced timeline is also uncertain, with many questioning whether the project can be completed by December 2027. The complexities involved in reviving a refinery that has been shut down for so long, combined with the extent of the damage, raises concerns about the project's viability. All of this is just election gimmicks. While the partial revival of Sonara, they say, is likely to have significant implication for Cameroon's energy sector. The country's reliance on important refined petroleum products will likely continue, and the impact on the economy and consumers remains to be seen. Yet, the colonial regime is dragging on reviving Sonara just because it is on Ambazonian soil. While the revival of Sonara is a complex and uncertain progress and process, while the announcement of a December 2027 timeline may seem like a positive step, the partial nature of the revival and the doubt over visibility raise concerns about the project's viability. As the project progresses, it will be essential to monitor developments closely and assess the implications on the energy sector and as well the economy. But the question is, while talk about a 2027 project, 2 months to the 2025 election, Bryce Mbeseha, that is the question. And at the same time, they are still saying, is it going to be a partial job, not even the total of it all?
Well, again, I think I'm the wrong person to be on this forum on this because I might become too emotional. This is the problem. We're talking about the Limbe refinery, which, according to government and every human being living there, the thing was burnt down in 2019. Reconstruction has not even been done. And they are talking about refining oil to refine. About 2 weeks ago, when this thing came up, government came out with something they claimed they wanted to launch it. They call it a memorandum of understanding. Then they abandoned it by itself. Then they told us that there were going to be a new refinery in Kribi. That's barely 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago. The Prime Minister says a lie. But it turned out that they went to lay the foundation stone for the new refinery, a modern refinery. If they have a modern refinery in Kribi, what makes them go to the dead, bent down refinery in Victoria? It's perfection of lies. And as if they think they were so stupid. When they laid the foundation for the refinery in Kribi, what did they say? Publicly, they told us that the foundation that it would take about 2 years for them to complete the project. It will complete it in 2027. Today they are telling us the same timeline within those 2 years, 2027, they will start refining oil in Victoria. Are they going to start refining in the new refinery, modern one, in Kribi? Or in the yet to be repaired, or to be rebuilt, burnt down refinery in Victoria? That's the perfection of lies. That's the perfection of political strategy. Are we so stupid? If everybody is so stupid, not me, at least I can read those dates. Those are their own figures. Those are their own statistics. The information comes from the government. Can Mr. Dion Bute, who is very directly involved in this thing, as the head of government, one, as the son of the soil of Indian from where the oil comes from, two, whose son we are told is a key manager of this new refinery in Kribi, three. Can you tell us which of this is true? Can you tell us what's the difference between what they are saying now and the campaign for elections that are due in the next 45 or 60 days? This is machination. This is fraudulent lying. This is fraudulent manipulation of human beings. And so it is just a lie. No oil is going to be refined there. There are no plans to do it because first and foremost, it was burned down. Secondly, they are building a modern refinery. Now, what do you need 2 refineries for? One modern in Kribi, the other one a cake in Victoria, refining the same oil from there. That must be a joke. They must think they were so stupid. Again, but not everybody is stupid. You can deceive some people sometime. You can deceive everybody every day. You cannot deceive all of us all the time. It's just a lie. That's political language, perfection of lies, perfection of fraud by the minority over the majority. And so it's not a coincidence now. Just like the Bambili story of insecurity is not an imagination, it's fraud being orchestrated on the people to get themselves entrenched in power. Not Mr. Paul Biya. They can tell others to vote Paul Biya, but they are not voting Paul Biya. They are trying to put somebody in power who will continue to give them positions to steal from, who will continue to allow them to get the oil, send it out by crude or any form or shape, pocket the money, and walk away for as long as they live. Hire jet planes from anywhere and fly to the hospitals of their best interest, as long as they're okay. And so, again, it's unfortunate. We should never have been here. But again, if it is lying, which is true, what they should know is that they have lied enough that we are no longer so stupid. They can change their strategy. I don't know what they will create again, other than outright fraud, but they can change their strategy. This is not working because we discovered those strategies. They don't even know how to manufacture lies. They don't even know how to manufacture even lies that can someone can rely on. They've abandoned the idea. Even Mr. Dion Gute, who said, no, the idea of building a new refinery is a lie. This is him on audio video. Publicly, it's a lie. He said so. But the problem is, even after all that line, after doing all this things that all of us now agree, which he himself agrees, you still find Ambazonians. If you see find sons and daughters of the soil coming from where? From Dian, coming from where? From Meme, from Kupemamu and beyond, clapping and telling us that they've contributed so many millions to help Obia be in power. If they contributed the millions, which they did not, they're not trying to help Obia get to power. They're trying to get something that would entrench them wherever they are, to continue to steal, to continue to make the poor poorer, to continue to make the sick sicker and to die without any accountability. Again, enough is enough. We're going into this, enough of this. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Now, still talking about PA, the population of the Santa Barbara neighborhood in Buea, chief town of the Atlantic Zone, has been abandoned to a 2-month-long electricity blackout. The prolonged outage has crippled local businesses and households, inflicting severe economic damage. Despite repeated complaints, French colonial officials have failed to provide a timeline for the restoration of power. This has left residents in a state of growing desperation. Since the launch of the war against Ambazonian, the French Cameroun's government, led by the 92-year-old Paul Biya, has continuously displayed a systemic disregard for Ambazonians. While blackouts are a national plague, their severity and duration are always disproportionately higher in these areas. The colonial administration has endlessly shown clear favoritism by funneling resources and infrastructure investment into their French-speaking communities, deliberately allowing the Savannah Zone, the Midland Zone, and Atlantic Zones to crumble. A new French Cameroon state-run power utility offers no real solution, citing a persistent deficit in the national grid due to low water levels at power stations. Residents, however, are not convinced that this is a convenient excuse for years of colonial government mismanagement and a lack of investment in modern infrastructure. While the BS government appeals for patience and announces plans, the reality on the ground is that communities like Santa Barbara are left in the dark, both literally and figuratively. The current blackout has devastated local businesses, with perishable goods spoiling and daily commerce grinding to a halt. Households are struggling to manage without basic services. The complaints lodged by residents have been met with silence, again highlighting the neighboring government's contempt for the people it claims to serve. To many, the lack of reliable information from its officials is not an oversight, but a tool of oppression, designed to keep the population this empowered. How do our people stay without power for 2 months? They do not have fuel, no diesel, no power, no roads. Barrister Mbeseha, how do people survive without power for months, for a week? Not to talk of months, 2 months, and counting.
Well, if they survive, and they do survive, it's thanks to nature. God is kind to them. That's just all. Because when they fall sick, even if they do fall sick, which is sure they do, they go to hospital, in fact, survives. A good hospital survives on energy, electricity. It's not even there. So how do these people survive? But that's not the important thing. The important thing is this is the first time in the world that I know. In here, it's supposed to be a private thing. That is selling something that you should buy. But instead of they coming to you to advertise their products, you, the consumer, you are going to them to beg them to sell you something. Which something, if they sell you, is of the worst quality. Which something, which they pretend to sell you, is a source of extortion. If you go to that Santa Barbara, where you say people have not had life for long, you see that the residents, they are still presented with bills to be paid. Paid they did not consume. For what? So, it doesn't work that way. But, again, India is supposed to be private. But is it really private? If we were private, we would not be seeing what is going on there. If they put in Santa Barbara, or anywhere else in Ambazonian, or anywhere in Cameroun, don't have electricity, what do? They go to somebody, they call it, the chef de terre, the sous-prefet, the prefet. What does the sous-prefet got to do with this thing? Or the prefet? Does he even have electricity in his house? He doesn't. So he has a generator. And so what is the role of this administration and the thing? It is because they have made everything possible in order to end up with the capital of only the president. Because the director general, the manager of some is appointed by presidential decree. He too is by virtue of some presidential ordinance of power. And so should people ever go through this? No. They're going to beg the so-called wherever they are. People of Santa Barbara in the rifle community should have been suing them for their food that got bad in the refrigerators, for the pain they go through because of this deceit. There's no excuse that water dries. If the water is only dry up, then Cameroon water must dry up. But again, remember that almost every place in Buea in Cameroon is named after water, called a Mesoto unit. Remember Limbe? The name Limbe comes from River Limbe. Remember Manyu? The name Manyu comes from River Manyu. You remember Meme? Meme comes from River Meme. So all this the river just suddenly drying up, or in Ambazonia or in Cameroon. This is madness. So if they put survive, again, we've analyzed this before. They've said this sometimes that while the transformers got blown up, transformers are made to fit specific performances. If you want to buy a transformer that would satisfy a consumer population of 50,000, and you want to use it to fit 80,000, it will blow up. So they go and buy, if I told they buy anything, they buy discarded transformers or underrated transformers, steal the rest of the money, put that thing there in the next few hours, and then they excuse yourself. Again, it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. We're analyzing the same thing here, right here. Where they go to Limbe, they put wooden poles. That's still in here. They let the poles get rotten. They fall on people's houses. And they kill somebody's children or a child in my phone, Victoria. Is that because they lack the water supply? Is it because they lack electric poles somewhere, sticks to pin on the ground there to carry those cables? No. I think this is just too much for us to bear. These are no longer excuses that we should bear. But again, just like in the previous segment, our surprise is that our leaders, civil and religious leaders and traditional leaders, they seem to live out of reality. What is the chief of Santa Barbara, there's supposed to be some native chief there. Is he also having electricity now? Where are the priests and the bishops and the pastors? Is this where they call normalcy? Is this where life is normal? No. Why are they silent over this? These are the very people, the traditional leaders who are supposed to lead the people, including the one in Santa Barbara, who threw themselves into a treaty, begging a failed Buea to become their president, pretending to campaign for him, and leaving that palace with chunks of money in their pockets. These are the very people in this Santa Barbara, like nowhere else, like in Victoria Marfo or in Bambili, wherever they are, where we have priests and bishops and pastors living there, whose leaders strove into the presidency in Yaoundé, Ikudi, telling Gongo to tell their president, who is dead, that everything is normal, that they will pray for him during, before, during, and after elections. For what? For peace. There's no peace without justice. There's no peace without equality. So somebody whose child died or who lives in Barbara, who is bad because there's no electricity. Is that peace? Is that peace? Now you think there's peace there? No. Peace is not physical peace. It must also be mental, must be moral. And so that's the global sense of the thing. In Neo, just like the security we mentioned in Bambili, just like water, we have talked about in other places, just like roads, just like in other things, health, we have mentioned before, everything, almost everything has failed. Only a person who doesn't see there's something wrong with you. If you don't see anything wrong with this, something must be wrong with you, not with the community. And so Santa Barbara, we're sorry for you. But there, I would rather encourage you to bring action for the loss you have incurred because of this. And by extension to any other community in Ambazonian who have suffered this loss, including people whose children have died caused by falling electric poles, whose children have died or themselves have died because of electric shock, because of falling cables on the streets or along the road. So this is a big problem. It is time for us to save ourselves, not prayers, but through physical means. This nonsense will end. It is ending and it will end. God being with us. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Still happening in Ambazonia. Teachers in Ambazonia are vocally condemning the Colonial Ministry of Secondary Education for its unjustified delays in announcing new work assignments. Well, according to grievances filed, this intentional uncertainty is causing a state of profound crisis, preventing them from making basic life plans like registering their children for school as the new academic year looms. A wave of frustration is mounting among southern Cameroon's educators who accuse the French administration of deliberately creating chaos in their homeland. In an open letter, a group of concerned educators detailed how the French Cameroon's military actions are accusing and causing widespread distress and stress, leaving them unable to make basic arrangements such as registering their children for school. While the Republic of Cameroon's government has remained silent on the issue, critics believe this neglect is not accidental, but a rather consistent tactics of oppression used to harm the Ambazonian population. These last-minute transfers, which often occurs just days before classes are set to begin, have a number of disastrous consequences. Well, according to the teachers, they report not having enough time to find new housing or settle into their new environment, forcing them to live in a state of instability. The lack of preparation for their new postings, they state, negatively impacts the quality of teaching from the first day, directly penalizing the students they are meant to educate. Many believe the teachers' complaints highlights a profound sense of demoralization and a belief that their well-being is of no concern to the colonial government. They are demanding a new strategy from the foreign ministry to avoid these problems and a solution that allows them to begin their academic year in a calm and effective manner, free from the stress deliberately inflicted by their employers. Oh well, these are just basic logistics that should have been handled. But in a country where people's lives are not respected, these and more can be seen. Barrister and Mbeseha, basic, give them months. Oh, you're being posted to this particular area. Give them even a year to plan. Housing is also a major challenge, as we often have given reports here. So why would people be posted just few days to resumptions? How would they effectively concentrate and teach children or students or pupils regarding or depending on what the case may be?
Well, yeah, it's different until you go in the scene and analyze what is going on. You see, these sort of schools, private secondaries are like, for sitting here, only running the schools for them in Akwaya, boom. In some places, only where you are. They're running the schools from Yahoo. Do they know what obtains there? They have no idea, absolutely no idea. And you have of the Minister of Secondary Education, close to 7 years. Each schools are found on northwest and southwest secondary schools. When the crisis started, it was this very minister who said, look, officially, if you are feeling if where all your things are run away, that's the minister. If you are unsafe, if you feel unsafe, of secondary education told them that. Especially the Minister of Education to know the climate, to know the conditions that are working. We're dealing with teachers. But again, 2 weeks, about a month ago, the Minister of Secondary Education ventured to go to what they call the Northwest. For the first time in her tenure of office of 7 years. And she come, I've never stepped foot in Bamenda. That's her. I didn't know that these roads in Bamenda are like this. But again, you expect that lady to be able to have control of those young children in Bambili we just talked about, who are in Bambili and all the schools there. To have control of the teachers who teach there and know the difficulties through which they go. To find even a building in Bambili or in Bale or somewhere else in Bamenda. That's the Minister of Secondary Education in Yaoundé, coming to tell people in Bamenda he doesn't know what obtains here. Again, talking about schools again, because we're dealing with schools. This is the very Minister of Education. Text of Ambazonian crisis. They officially moved out their teachers by transfer from what they consider as difficult areas. If you do not run away by yourself, they transfer you out of it. And these people are in touch with your relatives. Now, are they doing this out of sympathy for you? No, they are doing that out of deliberate actions. And I mean, we've seen it over the past few weeks, taking cutlasses and axes about fair trees that are growing in some of the schools. Nguti High School, in the Fountain Grammar School, they call it. Big trees are growing there. Do they expect these teachers to go there? But we're talking about transfer of teachers, moving them in time. Do they really transfer? They know what they are doing? I think a week or so ago, I saw them. They were posting a teacher to be the principal of a school somewhere in the center there. This man had died more than 5 years ago. And they're still posting to go and become the principal of a school. And these people are really in touch with what they are doing. No, they are not there. They don't even know. They sign those papers. They sign schools. They say there's a school created here. They don't know where the school is. It's a virtual school on paper. They send teachers. They are virtual. And then, of course, these very people who are sitting there. And they tell you they have something they call regional counselors who are in charge of schools, including primary schools. How many regional counselors have ever employed a teacher? The teachers are supposed to be employed somewhere in Yaoundé, posted to them if they wish, and taken out in the earth. And so this is part of the so-called decentralization. This is part of so-called special status that they are fighting to promote. Is this what the trouble? No. For those who don't know, go read the history of Southern Cameroon as of 1961. If you were teaching in womb, your salary came to womb straight away. You picked it there. If you were teaching in Manfred, you got your salary in Manfred. You didn't need to go to Yaoundé to see the Minister of Education, Mr. Ndamoko, at the time, to do it for you. You didn't need to go to Buea, to go to the General Treasury to take the money. The money met you there. And so this is education. If the administration, the education system fails, it fails. There's so much that goes into education. A week or three ago, we were talking about the unpaid allowances of workers of the Secretariat. Did you see? And as they go through this, the gist is the people pay that thing. And when people work for it, they don't pay them. And how do you expect to produce good results when you're paid cash for your child to sit there? The markers can mark. Somebody must send the Secretariat to do the combination of the results. And so the system from A to Z completely failed. That's why we're fighting to get out of it. And we'll fight and fight until we get out of it. What we believe is change is what we think we need it. We don't need authority. We don't need the consent of Paris or the consent of London to do what we think is right for ourselves. It's unfortunate. It should never have happened to us. We're put into this system. What is the solution? Fight and get out of it and do something good for yourself. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Another report here. Residents of Malender, a locality in Muyuka, are living in fear due to the extortion and brutality by French Cameroun soldiers stationed at the CDC camp known as Candev. Despite previous protests against the colonial military's harsh tactics, the situation has worsened, with the colonial soldiers vowing to increase their demands. The La République du Cameroun soldiers have doubled the fee for bike riders and farmers from 500 francs CFA to 1,000 francs. Additionally, they have introduced new fees for farm products, including a bag of wheat cocoa for 5,000 francs, a bag of palm nuts for 2,000 francs, a bag of cassava for 1,000 francs, a bunch of plantain for 500 francs each. If farmers and traders fail to pay this fees, the colonial soldiers seize their bikes and impose fines ranging from 25,000 to 50,000 francs to secure their release. This has led to widespread fear and frustration among the residents who feel they are being exploited and mistreated. The residents are calling on the competent authorities to intervene and put an end to these practices. They say that when they try to question the colonial soldiers, they are told to take their grievances to Yaoundé and report to President Paul Biya. The community is desperate for relief and justice. The people of Malender are pleading for help to stop the colonial military's extortion and brutality. They hope that by sharing their story, they can bring attention to their plight and find a solution to their problems. The question remains, will their cries be heard and will justice be served? Barrister Mbeseha, they have cried out. Will their cries be heard and will justice be served?
Yes, I think their cries have been heard and they have been heard forever. But would they ever get justice? No. Because it is not what they are saying. They knew what they were doing. All what is done there is done on calculation. I know the place they call CAMDEV. CAMDEV really means Cameroon Development Corporation. That's part of the CDC. They created that company in the early 90s and started exporting from there. Then they sent soldiers there to do what? To provide security. And then, of course, that's the official reason. But they also let the soldiers know that you have to survive, as you say in the country talk. A goat eats where it is stated. They put you there, put your own money, and leave. So the extortion is nothing new. Extortion is official. They levy those taxes, there's nobody to complain to. The idea of going to put a camp there was to secure a CDC camp, a CDC plantation. Well, unless they provide to sit under every palm tree, under every rubber tree to guard the place, they must admit that they have failed. But again, this is Muyuka. He said, well, he asked if they ever get justice. No. Remember again last week, was it last week? There was something, an incident in Muyuka, where, according to them, unidentified people came and bent down the Catholic school in Muyuka in the middle of town, in plain daylight. Where were the military guys? They have come in camp there. That was all the way in Malende. The whole Muyuka is full of military camps. They could not even identify one. Nothing. All what they did was to go to the so-called chef de terre, somebody they call a Dio. And if you watch social media, the guy standing there in his khaki shirt, speaking another friend of English, and promising her with his iron uniform. Well, how many people has he caught? No. But he's also the chef de terre. He reports directly to the president. And so we were asking if these people will get justice. They will not. Because they have told them, the security, they have told them, go to Yaoundé and lay a complaint there. Why? Because we're answerable to Yaoundé. They didn't say that they didn't do it. No. Go and lay your complaint to Yaoundé. Where there's an ordinary woman, an ordinary farmer in Malende, in Muyuka, go to Yaoundé to see who. They can even get to Muyuka, talk less of Buea. And then you are referring them to go to Yaoundé. How many of them will even go 100 miles close to where the women Sangongo lives? 0%. And so are they aware of this? And they are aware. That's why they tell you go to Yaoundé and solve your problem there. Why? Because Yaoundé will drive you away. The people are put there to extort, to survive on the population. We are told, I'm not sure of this, we are told that being put there, for example, you are supposed to be in a risky zone. You're supposed to have risk allowance. Which risk allowance doesn't even go to them, they steal the money, never gets to them. Some of them have just graduated from school, they are not even having to pay. So they have to survive on the 1,000, the 500 they extort from you there. It is an official extortion because nobody is taking steps to end it. It is an official extortion because the complaints are being received and nobody is taking any action. The insecurity goes on under the pretext of unknown gunmen. Whereas they have all the security there, they cannot catch a single unknown gunman. The prefect or the sub-prefect there doesn't knows everything, but he cannot take action. He stands there, I saw you crying out, oh, everybody must come, we'll catch the people, he has caught nobody. Is this new? No. This has been the story since 2016. The people of Muyuka in general, Malende, Buea, and all these places have their own share. They have had the biggest share of the government scam. So, again, the people of Malende out of this could resist because that's the only way. But resistance successfully means that someone would, for women, someone would attempt or would really rape you. For children, someone will do something unusual to you. So again, you are caught between the rock and the hard sea and the Red Sea. Take care of yourself. Be sure no bad conditions will last forever. Time is coming when, God willing, all these things will come to an end. It only reminds us that we were in the wrong place. And when you find yourself in the wrong place, what do? You don't surrender and die there. You fight. If you don't get out, if you get out wounded, your surviving children will take the benefits. That's all what it is about. It is official, organized extortion. It is official, organized torture. It is official, organized discrimination. That has been going on for the past 60 years or more. But no bad conditions will last forever. As long as people fight, improvement will come. Over to you.
Much Barrister Mbeseha. But before you go tonight, let's take one of the editorials from the Voice of Ambazonian, championed by Dr. Martin Mongwa.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Monday, and our editorial is titled Prophets and Courtiers: The Church, the Regime, and the People's Verdict on Ambazonia. Fellow Ambazonians, good day. From the hills of South in Bambui division came men who spoke with courage. So once leaned to Dr. Endele's side in the politics of the 1950s. But out of that same soil rose voices of conscience, men who chose truth above fear. The first was Professor Bernard Fandon, a Catholic lay priest in training, a cabinet minister, and a great academic. He warned that the federal experiment of 1961 was fragile. He wrote The Task of Today, showing that without mutual respect, the union would collapse into domination. Decades later came Joseph Wilbur, another son of Saul. In 2016, he shook the National Assembly with words that still echo: when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty. Wilbur carried forward Fondon's courage, telling the regime inside their own chamber that Ambazonia would not be silenced. Then came the prelates, Cardinal Christian Tumi and Archbishop Paul Mbeseha, both sons of Saul, both fearless in the face of power. Cardinal Tumi began in Yagua, served in Garwa, and later Douala. At the Grand National Dialogue of 2019, the regime tried to bury independence, but Tumi allowed it onto the ballot. The people voted, and 69% chose independence. That moment shook Yaoundé. Before Ngongo Ferdinand and regime officials, Tumi told the truth. He angered the state, but won the people's trust. Archbishop Mbeseha built institutions and preached moral consistency. Sadly, his prophetic spirit did not live on in his successor. Today, their legacy shines in Francophone clergy. Bishop Yauda of Yagua, Archbishop Cleda of Douala. They have spoken against corruption and injustice, keeping alive the line of prophecy. But not all chose courage. Some became courtiers of the regime. Archbishop Andrew Kier, now in Bamenda, tried to coerce his former classmate, Dr. Samuel Ikumisako, to abandon independence. He failed and later was rewarded with a free ride to the Canada monologue. Bishop Michael Bibi, now in Buea, echoed Yaoundé's lines. He scolded Ambazonians for resisting while keeping quiet on state atrocities. Reverend Samuel Funke, moderator of the Presbyterian Church, shocked his flock in Bali. After soldiers killed civilians, he blamed the locals. Later, Buea's portrait appeared at his office door. He too enjoyed a free ride to the Canada monologue. Funke once bragged that he would destroy his adversaries with his pen, but he has since fallen silent. Perhaps he no longer dares, or perhaps he has realized there are stronger writers than he imagined. Today, Ambazonia has a voice, not from a corrupt pulpit, but from the peoples themselves. Fellow Ambazonians, the church is divided. The prophets, Fanon, Wilbur, Tumi, Mbeseha, Yauda, Cleda, who stood for dignity and truth. The courtiers, Nkier, Bibi, Funky, who bent to power, and the people, whose verdict at the Grand National Dialogue was clear: 69% for independence. History will remember prophets for their courage, courtiers for their compromises, and the people for their demand for freedom. From the hills of South Imboi to Douala to Yagua, the prophetic flame is alive, and one truth cannot be denied: Ambazonia's destiny is independence. This has been the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha. This is not just an editorial. I think at this point we can consider these a lecture series. But then let's get your thoughts on this as well.
Well, I think every single word, every single comma, every single full stop there is important. But let me just, for lack of time, let me just take what is meant for this broadcast. See, they have highlighted the insult people there from Fonlong to Wilbur to me. And then we can put that in the context of what is going on today. You mentioned Cleda, for example. Maybe people don't know a lot. Cleda was actually got into the priesthood through Tumi, Christian Tumi, who was made the bishop of Yagua. That's when he came to know him, and he ordained him into the priesthood. And he ended up in Douala, succeeding Tumi as the Archbishop of Douala. They will say in English, like father, like son. But in the narrative that is put there, they inadvertently left as somebody. There was somebody, another Saw guy, who very much respected, called Bingo. The founder of Saw, Bingo, whichever was the one I cannot remember, who in the 60s, or not long after that, told Ahijo that in the Saw land, the fund does not go out of the palace. The palace receives visitors, they don't go to meet visitors. And caused the almighty Ahijo to go meet him in his palace. That was the fund of Saw. And then came Fonglong, getting back to chronological age. Fonglong passed through the seminary, but ended up as administrator, working with the government of Southern Cameroon. And he told them the truth. We were told, I'm sure. There was in the old national anthem of so-called Cameroon, a part of which was said in the autrefois, nous vivons dans la sauvagerie, that in the past we lived in primitiveness. It is, we are told, the Followood said, no, this cannot feature here. He took out that verse. This is an ensemble. And then came Christian Tumi, now a cardinal. But before him was Vesigov, a bishop. After all those came Wilbur. And they have the same story. The latest of which we get from Wilbur, who said, in summary, Mr. Paul Buea and your government, France and everybody, this Anglophone problem, we call it, is not a thing that you go the way you go. The military option is the worst thing you can do, because if you bring in together the French army to add the US, you will not be able to defeat Ambazonian when they rise. And that is proven true. This is the Banso guys who, whatever uniform they wore, the bishop, the uniform of a priest, the suit of a politician in Yoruba, or the cassock of a failed seminarian in Fonlong, they tell the truth. Truth never lies. Truth remains truth. In the Banso man, I will know what's going on today in Kumbo. The Bui warriors, the Bui fighters, fighting in Bui has become a big center of the struggle. Can we learn from this? Yes. Do some people from the South ground make mistakes? Of course they do. The gods don't forgive you easily. The fallen South, who are told has abandoned the palace and disappeared to Yaoundé for chicken nuts, for whatever thing he could find there, is a failure. Not only to Ambazonia, he is a failure to the South ground. And so, what we take home from Dr. Mungwa's writing, his audio is important and significant. Let us take the cue from there. Facts are facts. Truth remains truth. And until you tell the truth, only the truth will set you free. These people you have mentioned, they are all dead except Wilbur and the present form. But they told the truth to us and to our oppressors. He told the truth to those who succeeded Vesigov as the bishop, Archbishop Bamanda, who succeeded Christian Tumi as a cardinal in the church, who succeeded Fonglong as the first person who could speak French and English in the parliament in Yaoundé. And then truth remains the truth. Clarity in truth. Until we adore these principles of truth, we shall never be free. Because truth is about facts. Facts are facts. You cannot change facts at your own pleasure. Facts are not opinion. Truth is not opinion. Truth is truth. The truth is Ambazonian is different from other people in Cameroun. The truth is, as stated by themselves, they have been trying to assimilate these people for the past 60 years. The truth is, we have resisted and will continue to resist. Because all the truth will set you free. The truth is, they have not won the war. The truth is, until they come and address the root causes of the problem, there can never be peace without justice. That's what we take home from that Mongo's statement. It is historically important. To be cited anywhere, I earlier said that our historians, our university professors, don't write articles. They don't publish anything, even in defense of themselves. They can take a line from that and even write in foreign journals. They can write anything. Let them learn to defend their professorship by putting down academic justice, academic facts. Because they don't lie. Facts remain facts. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. The next one is about the formation of Ambazonia. You know, we can't stop talking about this. More or less the origin of the Ambazonian problem. The origin of the Ambazonian problem. Dr. Mungo tried his best to put them together in a very short audio. Let's get the second one.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Monday, September 1st, 2025. Our editorial today is titled The Origin of the Ambazonian Problem. Part 1, the Federal Foundation of 1961. Fellow Ambazonians, good day. The roots of our problem lie in the Federal Constitution of 1961, one of the most consequential bargains in African post-colonial history. On September 1st, 1961, the draft of the Federal Constitution was completed. 1 month later, on October 1st, 1961, it came into effect. The Federal Republic of Cameroun was born, a fragile union between two colonial legacies. East Cameroun, the former French administered territory which had gained independence on January 1st, 1960 under President Ahmadou Ahidjo, loyal ally of Paris. West Cameroun, the former British administered Southern Cameroon, which had voted in the February 1961 United Nations plebiscite to join Cameroun after Britain and the United Nations denied its plea for full independence. The Constitution created a federal framework. West Cameroon retained its House of Assembly and House of Chiefs. East Cameroon kept its National Assembly. At the federal level, there was a president, a vice president, and a federal national assembly. Ahmadou Ahidjo became the first president of the federation. Django Funcha became vice president. And then came the most important safeguard, Article 47. Any proposal to revise the present constitution which impairs the unity and integrity of the federation shall be inadmissible. That was the legal firewall, the guarantee that federalism could not be abolished. But even then, the French-trained bureaucracy in Yaoundé considered federation a transitional phase. The seeds of betrayal were already planted. Part 2, the breach of federalism in 1972. Barely a decade later, Ahmadou Ahidjo struck. In 1972, after discovery of crude oil in Victoria, Ahmadou Ahidjo called for a national referendum under the pretext of strengthening national unity. The vote took place on May 20th, 1972. But this referendum was a direct violation of Article 47. It asked citizens to abolish the federation and create a unitary state. The results were nothing short of theatrical. West Cameroon had a population of 800,000 with only 200,000 registered to vote. Out of 179,000 ballots cast, official figures claimed more than 99% voted yes. Only 46 people were reported to have voted no. Most voters never even saw the draft constitution. On June 2nd, 1972, a new constitution came into force. Article 1 declared, "The Federal Republic of Cameroon shall become a unitary state under the name United Republic of Cameroon." With that single act, West Cameroon was erased. Reactions from leaders. John Funcher already resigned in 1970. Later, in 1994, he led a delegation to the United Nations declaring his people had been deceived. Augustin Ngomjua, his successor as Prime Minister of West Cameroon, opposed the referendum but was silent. Solomon Tandung Muna, who replaced Funcher as Vice President, aligned with Ahidjo and helped push the unitary project, a betrayal in the eyes of many West Cameroonians. Thus, the destruction of the Federation was both a constitutional violation and a political conspiracy. Part 3. The consequences and the Ambazonian question. The consequences were immediate and lasting. West Cameroon's House of Assembly and House of Chiefs were dissolved. Federal autonomy was swept away. The equal partnership promised in 1961 was replaced with subordination to Yaoundé. The voluntary federation became an annexation enforced by Ahidjo and backed by Paris. International silence. The United Nations, which had supervised the plebiscite, stood silent. Britain, the administering authority, turned its back. France celebrated its protege's consolidation of power. The heart of the problem, fellow Ambazonians. This struggle is not about language. It is not about culture. It is about a broken constitutional pact, an illegal abolition of federalism, the denial of the right to self-government under international law. The truth is simple. Ambazonia did not secede. Ambazonia was swallowed. And because there was never a treaty of union, we must now reassert our independence as a free nation and live in peace with the Republic of Cameroon. This has been the voice of Ambazonia, truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today's editorial was titled, "The Origin of the Ambazonian Problem." Stay strong, stay vigilant, and stay united.
The origin of Ambazonian's problem. The origin that every Ambazonian has to know, has to study, has to understand and speak freely about. Barrister Mbeseha, is there any part of this origin that you would want to highlight on with the very few seconds that we have left?
Yes, the only thing I can highlight, because Dr. Mungo has put out everything, but the thing I would like to put by way of emphasis is simply the so-called federation, which was supposed to be the first international experiment under the United Nations, based on documentation from the United Nations, where Ahidjo had gone to the United Nations General Assembly in 1959 and promised that federation. He had confirmed that late in 1960 what he intended, what the unification would be like. This was the head of state, talking with all due respect, but he was just lying. He deceived the international community. The first experiment to be put out worldwide by the United Nations as a federation had failed from the takeoff. Because one of the parties, like the Cameroun, were just lying. They lied to themselves. They lied to the international community. They did not even want any federation at any time. And so came 1960, 1st September, we are talking to D61. They purported to put out a federal constitution, which federal constitution Dr. Mungo has mentioned Article 47. But it was not even a federal constitution. It was a federation just in name. Look at Article 4 and 5 of that so-called federal constitution, along with Article 38, where the only duty that were left for the government of Southern Cameroon was to discover what everything they liked that had been forgotten, and take it as their own business as a government. And so this is international deceit of unimaginable consequences. Deceit by Cameroun to the United Nations, not even to Ambazonians. They lied, and they continue to lie. That federal constitution which Dr. Mongo has just put out there did not have the word one and indivisible, because the people of Southern Cameroon had resisted that word in 1961 July at the so-called Fumban Conference. But when they abolished it, the 1972 constitution, it was brought back. And from that day, if you ever mention anything that you wanted to discuss about Cameroon, and you talked about federation, it became a crime. The form of state became a crime. If you mention it, you were to go to jail. That is the cause of the war we're fighting now. In 2016, when this thing started, like whatever form, the teachers and lawyers demanded a revisit to the form of state. For them, they were adopted and taken to jail here one day. They have been sentenced to some of them to life imprisonment there for daring to talk to the form of state. For just mentioning it has been criminalized. And again, most of us never read this. I never went into these details until this thing started. I'm challenging our professors. We just mentioned about them. They read these books. They write out the facts as they are. They learn to do some research. Professorship is reading. Professorship is sharing knowledge. That's why it's important. And so these people have been, from day one, they have started out, they wanted to absorb Southern Cameroon, and they have done. That is what Paul Buea himself came out to say. Wanted to assimilate them. If they have not yet assimilated us as of now, it is because we resisted. This is from their own mouth, from the house's own mouth. And so the question we ask ourselves and our own brothers and sisters who are still sitting there in Yaoundé or at the corner, talking about the federation, talking about something they call the Unity State, whatever found the ticket. Where is the perfect Ahijo promised in 1959 to the United Nations? Where is the federation that Ahijo purported even to enact by the own federal constitution on the September 1st, 1961 constitution? Where is it? What will make your own federation you're looking for now, if you ever got it, different from what was there? What is going to protect it better than Article 47 that Dr. Mongo just mentioned there? It's a scam. People who are still thinking about this thing outside the market. They are doing this for simple reasons that they are afraid. Fear does not win war. Boldness and bravery win wars. All the lucky ones survive, but victory becomes victory and everybody enjoys. And so thank Dr. Mongo for doing these pieces. But we would rather tell our own brothers and even our own enemies to read the history and see what we're talking about. Until you know the pain of oppression, then we will know what oppression means. Again, back to what we have been saying about the so-called elections. All of them denied that they were in the problem. But until Issa Chiroma has been a victim of oppression, he are going to Chiloli prison. Just for being a Nordis. Just for being Nordis and being suspected for supporting Ahijo. He was taken to jail. Now he feels the pains. He thinks that Anglophone, they call them, have a cause to complain. And so, resistance in pain. Resistance is what is important. Because resistance will bring out the truth. And only the resistant ones will reap the benefit of truth. Truth means truth. Facts don't lie. History is what it is. History is not what you want it to be. It is what it is. And so thank Dr. Mongo for all that. I congratulate him for that. And then I hope people will learn from him. Again, to our professors of Bamenda University, Buea University, and the future students they produce from there, they produce also some people who call themselves lawyers. Victory is not based on your subserviency. No, it's resistance. We have mentioned this many times before. Look at Dinka. Dinka and Anglophone, they call him. Who was the step up and go and defend Dr. Bishop Abendamo in 1970, who was being falsely accused. Dinka is still alive, but he told that truth. History has recorded him for him. And so our brothers and sisters who are still begging to belong, well, you don't belong as a coward unless you want to become a slave. But slaves sometimes have some rights. That's how slavery even ended, because slaves were resisting. Not every slave resisted. Many, very few perhaps resisted, but many reaped the fruit of their resistance by getting slavery abolished. And so that's where we're up to. Again, thank Dr. Mongwa for that insightful information. Courage to our cowardly brothers and sisters. Courage to the feeble, the weak and the feeble, who cannot do it. But God willing, the few who can do it will liberate the majority who are already cowed down. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. Thank you so much for being here on Undaunted every weekday, educating Ambazonians across the globe and in the home front on what they need to know. Thank you so much for educating us all. Hope to see you tomorrow for another episode of The Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And right after the break, we'll head into Sudan, where the Sudanese cabinet is holding first meeting in Khartoum since army's recapture. In a significant development for Sudanese ongoing efforts to re-establish national governance, the country's transitional cabinet has convened in Khartoum for the first time since the city was recaptured by the army. The meeting, chaired by newly appointed Prime Minister Kamal Idris, marks a critical step in the government's state's ambition to return full-time operations to the capital by October. The cabinet session held just over 2 months after government forces regained control of Khartoum from the Rapid Support Forces was described by state media as a symbolic move towards the restoration of central state authority. Since the outbreak of civil war in April 2023, the government had been operating from the coastal city of Port Sudan, which remained outside the main combat zone. During the meeting, the 22 ministers discussed the administration's strategic roadmap for the remainder of the year. Key priorities include post-war reconstruction, stabilizing the national economy, restoring security across contested regions, and facilitating the voluntary return of millions of internally displaced citizens. Kamal Idris, who was sworn in as Prime Minister in May before Transitional Sovereignty Council Chairman General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, is tasked with steering Sudan through one of the most tumultuous periods in its modern history. His administration faced the challenges of rebuilding a shattered capital and reuniting a population deeply fractured by more than 2 years of armed conflict. The civil war, which erupted in April 2023 between the Sudanese Armed Forces and the RSF, turned Khartoum into a frontline battlefield. While the army has made significant territorial gains in recent months, including retaking key RSF strongholds in the capital and other parts of the country, Sudan remains in a state of profound humanitarian crisis. The conflict has killed tens of thousands and displaced an estimated 15 million people, both within Sudan and into neighboring countries. Despite the army's recent successes, large parts of the country remains unstable and violence continues in several areas. Observers caution that a symbolic return to Khartoum, while important, must be matched by concrete political progress and inclusive efforts towards national reconciliation if Sudan is to emerge from the devastation of the war. Well, coming up right after the break, we'll head into BRICS as BRICS steps back from unified currency plan, embraces local trade in national currencies. The BRICS, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is retreating from its earlier push to launch a unified currency aimed at challenging the global dominance of the US dollar. Once a central pillar of the bloc de-dollarization agenda, the plan for a shared currency has lost momentum as member states face growing economic and political hurdles. Instead, the focus has shifted towards promoting the use of national currencies in bilateral trade and building local financial infrastructure to reduce reliance on the dollar. Russia, a key advocate for the unified currency, symbolically displayed a prototype BRICS banknote dubbed the unit at the 2024 Kazan summit. The moment sparked renewed speculation about a pending monetary revolution. However, the excitement was short-lived. Diverging economic conditions, lack of monetary policy alignment, and India's firm stand on preserving financial sovereignty have all contributed to a more cautious approach across the bloc. Rather than pursuing a complex supernatural currency, BRICS nations are invested in more practical steps, expanding currency swap agreements, enhancing cross-border payment system, and increasing local currency settlements in trade. China and Brazil have grown their yuan real trade volumes, while India and Russia continue to deepen rupee-ruble transactions, particularly in sectors impacted by Western sanctions. This revised strategy reflects a broader shift from symbolic gestures to functional reforms. BRICS leaders now see greater value in strengthening bilateral ties and developing financial mechanisms that allow for gradual detachment from the dollar without the risks associated with a common currency. The goal of de-dollarization remains both a path is more decentralized and adapted to the realities of each country's economic landscape. While the idea of a unified BRICS currency is not entirely off the table, it has clearly been shelved in favor of more immediate, manageable goals. The bloc is now focused on building resilience through regional cooperation and currency diversification, not by creating a singular monetary entity in the evolving global financial order. BRICS appears to be prioritizing pragmatism over ambition. Oh well, the stories on BRICS changes every single time. That's all we have for you on tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to the headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that kidnapping surged in Bambui and Bambili universities as gang exploits ransom, residents urged to stay vigilant. Also tonight, scenarios on certain revival, crude refining to partiality resumes in December 2027. Tonight, we took a look at the French Cameroun subjecting Buea residents to 2-month blackout, as well as the French Cameroun administration inflicting chaos on Ambazonian teachers. We headed to Muyuka, where residents is decrying La République du Cameroun's military extortion and brutality in Ambazonian. While on the African scene, we told you that Sudan's cabinet is holding first meeting in Khartoum since army's recapture. While on the global scene, we took a look at BRICS stepping back from unified currency plan. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing to the news on Touch Stories. On behalf of the team of technicians behind tonight's production, and of course our in-house analyst, Barrister Mbeseha, is good night and God bless.
because I value my past.